1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Look here, you have these.
Opening statement, Minister.
Their copy of this to find the things about when they're asking your voice.
Minister, opening statement.
As you sign them and give them to me as you come.
We're waiting the Minister for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members. First of all, let me introduce, kind of under the weather tonight, you know. Let me introduce formally the new permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, Mrs. Kadisha Campbell Rochester. But in doing that, let me also pay tribute to former Permanent Secretary Carol Palmer, who guided me and the ministry since I took the portfolio responsibility in 2020. Mrs. Palmer retired at the end of December, but continues to play a role with the electricity negotiation of the new license. So today, based on the time, Mr. Chairman, and it may be good that I'm not feeling 100% tonight, a little bit under the weather, so I'll be concise and short. And just to indicate that we have the full ministry team here, and in the interest of time, I won't name them all out, but to say that the Ministry of Energy, Transport and Telecommunication serves as a cornerstone of government's effort to shape and implement strategic policies in energy, transport and telecommunications, with a focus on driving sustainable development, optimizing infrastructure systems, and advancing technological innovation. MED plays a pivotal role in fostering Jamaica's economic growth and enhancing social progress. And I think that we can all agree that this ministry in recent years has lived up to that mandate. But as I said, based on the fact that we have two more ministries tonight, I will ask that we go straight into the questions. And what I would say in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, if you agree, is if we could do them in the divisions, one at a time. Well, I don't care where we start, but any questions that come just flow through the various portfolio responsibilities so that we don't have to be going back and forth and I can access the information much easier and quicker.
Yeah. Member Paulwell.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. And I'd also like to join the Minister in welcoming the new Permanent Secretary in the Ministry. And we wish you well. He's not an easy person, so we wish you well. Of course. And of course, to Ms. Palmer, who had served well. Chairman, there are some, all of my questions will relate to the Jamaica public bodies, and there are three sets that I will be writing to the Minister about. These relate to Universal Service Fund, the fiber cable purchase that was just done, and of course the award of the new cellular license. I'm going to be writing you. I do need the responses in time for my sectoral presentation. Sure. So in relation to those three items. And it's to try and save some time this evening. Minister, if I could turn to energy, because in the public bodies.
Yes, I love this chair. I love this chair. Yeah, me too.
Yes, I've been disturbed by the speaker. Chairman, in relation to public bodies, I go straight to Petrojam, because I am seeing where in 2024-25, by the audited statements, Petrojam lost about 4 billion Jamaican dollars. And it is estimated by the end of this financial year to lose another approximately 4 billion Jamaican dollars. And for the new financial year, a loss is also projected of just about a billion and a half. So Petrojam, that used to be a profit-making enterprise, is losing money 3 years in a row. And I know I've asked the minister already about the Zaka report and what was recommended, our own views about that. So I'd like the minister to outline today, where are we with Petrojam? Where are we in getting Petrojam back to profitability? And importantly, the government's position on the Zaka report.
Thank you, member. So we are in agreement with that in relation to the fact that the Petrojam has been losing money. And the key loss drivers are stagnant sale volumes due to more competition in the domestic market and high operating expenses. Petrojam has been losing market share to other importers. We have remained stagnant for the last 4 years with approximately 11.7 million barrels per year. What are we going to do about that? Obviously, we are going to make sure that we try to cut expenses. As a start, try and increase sales, reduction in cost of sales by sourcing finished products directly from refineries to reduce intermediary costs, implementing CapEx projects that result in increased revenue, such as the asphalt production HFO feed storage project, which was commissioned in July 25, the new asphalt tank construction, the catalyst replacement to produce higher octane gasoline, and of course, cost control measures. Obviously, Chairman, elimination of discretionary spending, optimization of inventory to navigate price fluctuations, freeze on non-critical hiring, CapEx projects for cost savings such as installation of solar panels for the 5 buildings. Just to say that there is a engagement by Petrojam of a consultant in November 25 to undertake a comprehensive technical and economic assessment of alternate operating options for the refinery within the existing framework. So we are at one with it, member, and obviously what we are going to aim to do this year is to reduce the losses with a view of trying to return to profitability.
Well, just a follow-up on that, Minister, because in the book it says that you have this firm, Muse, Stencil and Co. But this was the same firm that we had used some years ago to provide a pathway for Petrojam. And that pathway included the expansion of the refinery, but very importantly, the utilization of new technology to enable the refinery to be far more efficient. The refinery is over 40 years old with old technology. Are you committing to implementing these proposals from the report? Well, first of all, when is that report going to be ready?
When is that?
Is there a commitment to implement? And therefore, Minister, you would agree that it means that you are not going to be accepting the Zaka report.
Correct. The third
Correct.
quarter of 26-27 for this report indicate that you are correct in terms of technological advancement. There are several unsolicited proposals that have come in recent times, including the use of AI, which is very interesting in terms of the projected cost savings according to what is being proposed. That is something that's being looked at as we speak. And of course, in relation to the Zaka report, nothing has changed in the position of government other than to indicate that, well, we know what the Zaka report indicated in terms of what they were suggesting. What I can say with what has been happening in recent times, a refinery or the strategic use of the refinery in this region has great opportunities. And as I said before, there is a heightened interest, especially over the last few weeks, in terms of persons and companies that are contacting Petrojam with different proposals, which we are going to look at all to see how we can take advantage, bearing in mind that the refinery has the ability to refine crude oil from Venezuela. So again, as it stands now, same situation that stood the last time I was here in relation to Zaka report, accepting that we think that having the refinery at this point will turn out to be a better opportunity than what was previously suggested.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy.
But you and I are always at one, you know. So
in terms of Petrojam,
of course.
But let us move to JPS, now, because Minister, we fought a lot recently when you announced that the government was going to be allocating this loan of 150 million.
Yes.
And we fought largely because there was an assumption that it would be costing the JPS a lot more to get full restoration. My question is, how much more than the 150 million, which is $24 billion, it is costing JPS for full restoration, and where is the balance of that money coming from?
Thank you very much, member. But I would have to formally put what I already said at the postcap this week, that we are at 99% restoration as of February 28th. We are under 10,000 customers, of which the majority of those customers are in Westmoreland, 5,529 in Westmoreland and 3,723 in St. Elizabeth and 512 in St. James, totaling 9,764. So we don't need to go back over it. The decision of the government to loan the money for early restoration has been a huge success. We are intending on getting 5,000 more customers back up by the end of this month, and the balance by the end of April. That is the commitment of the JPS to me. Let's go to the funding. Because again, this was contentious, because right here in Parliament, it was said that we shouldn't release $150 million until we knew where the balance of money was coming
Quite
from.
rightly.
Well, the bottom line, if we had followed that, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about these results as we speak. But let's leave that for the minute. The government of Jamaica loaned 150 million US. Yes? That's signed, sealed. The Electricity Disaster Fund provided 40 million US, which is a kind of quasi-insurance for the transmission lines that cannot get insurance. And my information from JPS is that they have found and invested in the restoration 110 million. So let's make it clear. The government has loaned 150 million and have nothing in front of us for any discussion, verbally or in writing, for any additional funding. And we are at 99% with 100% by April 2026. And let me remind the country that it was a JPS, not me, who said that without the intervention of the government, we would be looking at restoration by the last quarter of 2026, which would be September to December. And during the process, they revised that to the first quarter of 2027. I can't imagine a country going through that level of pain for a year. So anyway, that's where we are, and I want to make it very clear that the commitment of the government for the $150 million was committed and delivered, and we have nothing else in front of us.
Minister, just for the records, we are on this side, we want to commend the JPSCO for the work that they've been doing. I want to acknowledge the restoration efforts. Minister, the problem that we had was there was no revelation as to where the balance of the money would be coming from. Now you have said to us that the balance 110 plus 40 is accounted for. Can you indicate to the Parliament of that 110 million US that JPSCO found? Did you give the government of Jamaica a guarantee for this? Especially because you had mentioned, because there was a threat to the license, they weren't able to get money. So how come they were able to get 110 million now?
So I can state categorically that the government of Jamaica has no involvement whatsoever in the $110 million that JPS found for the restoration efforts. Absolutely not. And I want to go further to say the decision of the government by separating the license and the renegotiation of a new license with the restoration, when we were being forced, not only by JPS, but by the lenders, to give them a 10-year extension to the existing license, for which I couldn't do as minister because I gave the country a commitment just last year that a new license. So let me just leave it by saying excellent decisions, tough decisions, good results on behalf of the people of Jamaica by a good government. Simple as that. I can't explain it any better.
Minister, you mentioned this week that there is a negotiating team.
Yes.
You mentioned a foreign group.
Yes.
Who are the local people involved with the negotiations? Or first, well, have they started those negotiations, and who are the local persons involved?
Let me again indicate that we have a local team.
Who are they?
That was formerly headed by the permanent secretary, Daryl Palmer, who now will continue in a role as senior advisor to the minister. And that is specific because of the magnitude of the work in this ministry. Yes? And a new permanent secretary coming in. We wanted to make sure that the license and the importance and the timelines of the license got the necessary attention. So we have a lead from the government. We have the ministry reps, the Attorney General Chambers, the Ministry of Finance, the Consumer Advisory Committee on Utilities, the energy sector specialists from both private sector and academia, and they are working alongside the hired consultant, which is FMA Consultants out of the UK, which is headed by a former minister in the UK at the time when the UK was going through their transition with energy. And the bottom line is we have all of what we need to make sure that we can go to the table against powerful private sector companies from outside of Jamaica that have the best access to the best lawyers and all the expertise that they need to make sure that we can come out of this with a license that is beneficial to the people of Jamaica.
Is there a role for the Energy Council in all of this?
So, you know my style. And the fact of the matter is that even before you ask me, now that I've gone through the process, gone to cabinet just last week, Monday I got an approval, there will be consultations. There will be consultations, formal consultations with the opposition, because this is not something that you want. You want everybody on the same page. And of course, all of the energy sector, council and all of that. But the government has the responsibility to lead this and to deliver until people.
In that regard, Minister, you mentioned in the press conference this week that the Cabinet has given approval to the terms of reference. Can you share those?
I would prefer, based on where we are now and the sensitivity, yes, because obviously JPS has to be engaged and the timing may not be right now, but I give you my assurance that you and I will have a discussion. I think you and I have had one already, but I will go into further detail and then I'll formally communicate and of course start the consultation exercise. But you can understand why I wouldn't want to go through ahead of the JPS being informed formally, because this will be the template of what the government is putting forward for any negotiation.
There are two more questions. The first one has to do
we're
with...
doing well so far, by the way.
You're doing okay. Minister, in the press conference this week, you mentioned that there will be renegotiations of power purchase agreements. Did I hear right? And in that regard, which of the power purchase agreements would you be thinking of renegotiating?
Again, member, and you would understand that that's not something I would go into. That's a part of the overall remit of the renegotiation, but I wouldn't want to get into the specifics of that. But as I said, you and I have had discussions on this matter, and we will go deeper into it as the process follows. Have to be very careful that you don't
Steal your thunder?
eh?
No, it's okay, Minister. Minister, we spent over a year dealing with the new electricity law. It was a review of the 2015 law that we had passed then, and the aim was after 5 years to introduce new legislation. A report was tabled in the Parliament. Do I take it that, based on your comments this week, that effort is no longer possible, or going forward you are disbanding that work and moving towards a new law?
So I wouldn't quite say it like that. What I would say is that we have been hindered because of the new negotiation of a new license, and it would be foolhardy to go ahead with that without putting it all in together in terms of the renegotiation of one license. So I would say to you that the decision of the government to advise JPS that there will be a new license come 2027 would obviously have stymied the process and the progress of that, but it's not the contents of what was discussed and the decisions that were made will be taken into consideration going forward in terms of
Are there an interested party now lobbying for that license that JPSCO now has?
So again, you have to be very careful. I can say that there is interest, but we would not move that interest past that until the process is followed. What we have clearly done is to make sure that there's a pathway that, if there for one reason or the other, the discussions and the negotiations with JPS do not go a certain way within a certain time, that we can branch off to the alternative to make sure that we meet the timeline of July 2027.
In the interest of time, I will yield to my colleague who is dealing with.
I hope that he will follow your lead. And I must say, Chairman, that the Shadow Minister for Transport did communicate with me to indicate that he would not be here based on personal health challenges. So I'm fully aware that he would not have been here.
Thank you, Chairman.
If there are any more questions of the energy.
No, it's transport. Oh. I get what you're saying.
If there are energy questions, so not leave it.
The member said that he'd be writing me in relation to some of the portfolio responsibilities. Right, sir.
All right.
Even though,
No,
even
no,
though,
no, you
even
can't do
though
chairman.
even though we would want to move member Cousins to the next segment, just for efficiency, if there are more energy questions, are there any more energy questions? 1, 2?
I know your
I
question.
won't go there,
You
no.
can answer. It will be included.
You can't do chairman.
It will be included.
May I tell you?
I will leave it after you know. That clause in the night will be the 2 years clause.
Wait.
Thank you, Chairman. Minister, certainly these questions are being posted on behalf of Member Phillips, as he indicated he would not be here today. So the first question is, may I direct it to page 158 of the public bodies book?
158.
The GOJ grant to the JUTC of 11 billion. What does this include?
11 billion. You have it in your thing.
On the same page 158, we know that the JUTC fair income is projected to move from $1.5 billion in 2025-2026 to $2.4 billion in 2026-2027. That's almost $1 billion. Where does that come from with a projected load factor of 48%? Does this revenue projection include an increase in public passenger fares?
Hold on one second, let me just make sure that you're listening to the question. Just hold on. The question of the increased revenue from 1.5 billion to 2.4 billion. How do we arrive at that? Yes, just hold on. Let's see the number one first. Number one first. Where's the question for number one?
So, Minister, if you want to answer as we go along, that may be more convenient for you as opposed to because it's 9 questions.
As the chairman did ask all the questions, we
You ask the question, you make notes of the question and answer them all together.
Right,
You
thank
don't
you.
make that decision there and make it up here.
All right. So, with a load factor of 48%, the question is, how did you arrive at that $1 billion increase in fare collection? Bearing in mind that today's bus rollout is roughly less than 250 buses. With the importation of approximately 200 new buses, what is the current fleet of the JUTC in the Kingston metropolitan area? The ideal, well, you know that, Minister, but the ideal rollout should be roughly 400 to 500 buses, I think, per day. Even though we did not expect the JUTC to make a profit, what is the plan to halt the huge losses at the JUTC? Before the government subsidies. Last year it was 12 billion. 2026, 2027 it will be 18.8 billion. So the subsidy is going up by roughly 6 billion here. Is that sustainable? Let me direct you now to page 69,012, land transport. There's no provision for rural school bus system. Where is it to be found, or have its operations been absorbed into the JUTC? Does it have its own depot, Maxfield Avenue depot, and its own management? What is the additional cost to JUTC to operate its rural school bus system, if it has been absorbed within JUTC? Page 69,000C1. We have not seen any provision for the importation of new school buses yet. Yet there's an announcement that there's going to be 100 new buses purchased to complement the 110 old buses bought for $1.4 billion this year. Where's the funding for these new buses going to come from? Page 158 of the public bodies, again, I'll direct your attention there. Repairs and maintenance. So repairs and maintenance minister is seeing an increase of $3 billion. What would contribute to such a large increase in the allocation or projection for repairs and maintenance? Is it the function? Does this large increase, or is it a result of the inclusion of the school buses in the operations of the JUTC? Why are we seeing a $1 billion increase in the line item fuel and lubricant? So if you look at the line item, fuel and lubricant is a $1 billion increase. Is that increase as a result of the absorption of the rural school bus system into the operations of the JUTC? Then again, look at public bodies book, page 2, the Airports Authority of Jamaica. The AAJ is projected to lose $3.6 billion in 2026-2027, according to the income statement on page 148. Is that an indication that the forward sale revenues under the securitization program was overdone? It is noted that the company will be paying over $12 billion to the concessionaire this year. The budget will have to find almost $3.5 billion to offset the airport's authorities' losses. Those are the questions.
Thank you very much. I will answer them as I receive them, not necessarily in the order that you gave. So the first question that you asked was about the $11 billion. That subvention will be provided from the consolidated fund. Now you also mentioned about $18 billion for 2026, 2027. The figures that I have is $12 point something billion, of which the JUTC will earn about $2.4 to $2.5 billion. So the subsidy would be somewhere about $10 billion. I'm not quite sure where the $18 billion is coming from. Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not quite understanding where that based on the numbers that I'm getting here. So the 18 is before the subvention. Okay. So 11 would be the subvention. Okay. Right. The revenue increase, which you are speaking about, would be from the runout, which incorporates both the rural school bus and the Montego Bay Metro, which comes under the JUTC. And yes, both of them are consumed under the JUTC. Yes, I think you had indicated that the JUTC is currently running out about 250 buses per day. Yeah. That is so. Obviously, we will increase that, but the difference between this 250 and what was happening before is that the majority of these 250 are brand new buses, or when I say brand new buses, new buses, including that we have extended routes, as you know. So there's a lot more happening with the 250 buses that would have been happening before. It was basically KMTR. Now, of course, you know, we're going to Maypen, we're going to Mandeville, we're going to Ocho-Rest, we're going to other destinations. The $11 billion that we just mentioned a while ago would obviously cover salaries, bus operations, bus maintenance, and of course, contracts to do with the JUTC. So the new buses, the new 100 buses, will come out of contingencies that are already provided for, because we have to go through the system, which is the new PIAB, which we should be going there within a matter of days. And the minister who is here has assured me that we will make sure to take us through the process in short order. But yes, the Ministry of Finance is aware, and it will come out of the contingencies. And just to say again, remember that this was supposed to be 150. It was reduced, obviously, because of Melissa and the constraints. But you will recall that one of the things that the PPC had said in approval of the first 110 buses is that they wanted us to go wider to see what else was available based on the fact that we were doing that in a short space of time to deal with the situations that were facing the students with the accidents and the injuries, etc. So this is coming out of an expression of interest, which is international. And of course, we will then, after we go through the PIAB process, we will then do a procurement, which will be competitive tender, international competitive tender. I'm not ruling out the possibility of expanding the current school bus because the U.S. Embassy, obviously because of the buses coming out of North America, have a keen interest and are looking to see how they can partner with us, government to government, to help us to enhance the rural school bus program. So again, we will do the 100 as we committed, and of course, we will do also the last 100 of the JUTC's 300 that the Ministry of Finance had approved in the 27-28 financial year. So we'll do 100 this year, we'll do another 100 school buses next year, along with the JUTC last installment. Right, the plan to reduce the JUCC debt will be done as we are on a path now to reduce and clear all our long outstanding statutories that
He's had a blast at that one, and he's not going to move either. He smashed that one through the offside field, and that brings up the 50 for the West Indies. Just slightly over pitched again from Andy Bickel, and again Robert Samuels taking full toll. That's what happens when you try to push the ball too far for it to swing back. It doesn't swing. It's very difficult for you to push the ball that far off stump for it to swing back. And Bickel, they're overcompensating. We heard Tony Gregg saying that he started on mid-stump ball previously. It swung too much this time. He pushed it outside the off stump, but pushed it too far.
West Indians have struck just after the tea break. They've got rid of Mark Waugh. What a wicket this is for them. Mark Waugh out caught by Campbell off the bowling of Ambrose for 79. Once again, he's got out when he really looked set for 100. It nipped back a little bit, bounced a little more than he expected, and Campbell, diving away to his right, makes the catch.